welcome to Hindi. This is your host Shrishti,
This is Anushka.
and we are back with yet another episode. Today's discussion is the United States of America.
If you can't guess,
Because of the background, that's a very internal joke. That's okay if you don't get it. The topic of discussion is tariffs. Because everywhere in the world, the only sound that you hear right now is tariffs, tariffs, and tariffs. Why, Anushka? What happened with tariffs?
because Mr. Donald Trump is back and how. He is now ready to take all the money back, the free money that America has been splurging all around the world. And as a country whose core ideals are capitalism, sanctions and tariffs are two of America's best weapons at play when it is not actually fighting with weapons.
And this is actually a repeat step that you can also witness during the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The first step that everybody took was sanction. And the pang of that hurt is that India is not ready to follow their rules. India is still buying Russian oil.
I mean, maybe that is another reason why America is irked by the entire situation. But the bottom line is that we as a country have trade surplus with a very few countries as of today, US being one of them. And if we lose this round of discussion and we do have to oblige according to their tariff systems, it might hit our fiscal policy a lot.
We're already struggling with the fiscal deficit. With a lot of countries officially, our taxations are not reaping us enough benefits. We are still dependent on remittances, and if this round of discussion falls, it's going to be a big blow for India. Because, and why the tariff is being applied, it's basically a revocation of the GS.
It's a preferential list that US has created for all developing countries ever since the end of Second World War, I guess, to help them grow back better, with an underlying situation that every new emerging market would be a market for the US companies itself. But India, being one of those countries, reaped the benefits of having very minimal to low taxations on import or export duties with US. And now this is something that Trump wants to change because, quote unquote, we are not poor anymore. A country that is sending satellites shouldn't receive money for free.
Exactly, and the global positions have changed on India. You can clearly see this. And if somebody was doubting that India is rising globally, please see. Now we have repercussions of growing. Okay, America doesn't consider us poor anymore, so we don't have the privilege of trading with them in the preferential system that they established.
So that is obviously a discourse for a different episode, which will definitely come out very soon. But probably let us go back to how this blue was built so dark that it contained the entire world. The famous saying going that if America catches a cold, the whole world sneezes.
That essentially talks about basically how the entire global order is dictated and centered around the United States of America. What America does is to be replicated. What America says is to be followed. That's how the global dictates go. And to a point where traditionally in history we see that the Europe was the financial capital and everything, and the tables have turned so far that US had to rescue the most richest continent of the world, which is technically not a continent, but that's a separate discussion. So as it goes in Hindi, this is going to be a conversation between two friends, colleagues, students, classmates, and we welcome you to our conversations as well. You're free to listen.
All the thoughts should be in the comments. We read all of them, and I am very happy to. We have a very few loyal listeners as of yet, hoping for that to grow in future, but we do read all the comments and we are so grateful for all the support that we get. And with that, I think I want to trace back to the fact that America as a country was discovered very later in the scale of timeline. If you see India, we have like thousands and thousands of years of history. America, not so much. But if you see the bank balance of America, thousands of trillions, India not so much.
And if we were just to be, if there was a world in which you would be paid for your cultural heritage, India would be one of the richest. But sadly, that's not how money works. How money works is also a very different discussion. What I want Anushka to talk about is how America has fought all of these wars. They have financed all of these wars, but they've never fought a war in their own territory.
I mean, there are benefits to being a huge country with water both the sides and two of the most docile neighbors ever.
Yeah.
Or you press them under the financial thumb that America definitely has. And with that, I want to trace back to the fact that even the land that Americans live on, are they really Americans?
Are they Native Americans? Are they Indians? Are they Mexicans? This is the discourse, guys. And you can see a lot of people on the internet telling the internet that they do not want to be called Native Indians because they're not Indians or Red Indians, which is understandable because that land belongs to Native Americans.
Exactly. And to all the listeners, I know most of you are definitely well aware because internet is a place where plethora of information is available to everybody, but the whites that you see on the American land are not native to it. There is a reason why Amerigo Vespucci, when he went to America, when he was actually the one to found America. Please, everybody who writes Christopher Columbus in their answers, you are wrong. Please don't do that.
Correct your books, guys.
So when he reached the place, there is a reason why he thought that, oh, I have landed in India, because we look awfully similar to the Native Americans. And the whites that are living here have actually migrated from different parts of Europe.
Exactly. So just a random recommendation in between of the episodes. If you want to watch something on the origin of Americas, please watch Outlanders. It's on Netflix. And that show actually gives you a highlight into how UK was torn because they were conquering left, right and center. People were not happy because even if you see the map, you know that UK is not just UK. It has Scotland as well, a part of it. And the Scots were not happy with the red coats, as they called them. It was the story of classical British colonialism, exploitative, its barbaric nature of life, as they call everybody else. So that's where the Jacobin revolution starts, and long story short, they start to move around in different parts of the world. America becomes a settler colony, and guess what? The whites arrive in the land of America.
And it, okay, not to a very huge extent, but forces from Spain, Germany and France also settled in North America. Not just in the US, but if you see a lot of Canadian states, they have French speaking population.
Yes.
They have, when you go to Mexico, there is a reason why Spanish reached that land, because that is how the current population of the North America has been instated by a lot of Europeans who are not happy with their own homeland to migrate to a place. And that is the same reason why you see a lot of whites in New Zealand and Australia. Again, that's a separate episode for New Zealand and Australia, because those two countries have also suffered a lot and they need their due, which is, I think, not very well talked about or well versed at this point. The Aboriginals are so underrated, so underappreciated.
Exactly.
But that's again a different story. But they definitely have a correlation with the Native Americans that we are going to talk about.
So basically, the land of America is a bunch of sort of colonizers who have settled, and what they've given in return to the people of that land who hosted them is a tiny diversity hire quota that says Native Americans et al., which means everybody else which is diverse, and people of color and all of that jargon that the liberal order throws out. So basically what we want it to talk also about is how America is so into everybody's business. I mean, they're fighting wars across the continent. They're the protector of democracy. Anywhere in the world democracy goes wrong, America has to step in because they're the big leaders, right? So to make America great again, not only do they need the money from the tariffs, they also apparently need to keep their feet in their territory. Exactly. So, the splurging that we've seen in the course of history, when America steps out and has its boots on the ground, is democracy established?
Again, that's a separate discourse to talk about, because we do not want a missile to hit from somewhere, destroy our beautiful college, and then we don't have a place to record, because we will still continue to bring you stories.
Exactly.
That's a very dark discourse. I don't want to get into it. A lot of people are still suffering because of many proxy wars that are being fought, and our hearts and prayers go out to everybody who is in the state of distress. And this is an everlasting sort of behavior of America, because if they don't win by sanctions or tariffs, their two favorite toys to play with, they literally bring the big guns. That is their vast, everlasting, thriving war economy, which is something that is a very serious conversation to have. And war economy, as we were discussing in one of our lectures as well, it is present everywhere. All the major wars after World War II, if you see, have some or the other kind of the US touch to it.
Exactly. Even speculations have been made in the Bangladesh coup that happened that it is a classic CIA style, and nobody to comment on that. All of the experts can comment on that matter. But what we have actually seen in the world is a pattern where a despotic ruler is overthrown and democracy is placed. And what happens after the democracy is placed? Because America helped in the establishment of that democracy, the democracy needs to support America as well. And what happens? You flood open your markets, you let the Americans in, and that's how American culture takes root. And before you know it, you have McDonald's in your neighborhood.
I mean, and places where America lost, or America wasn't able to cement a democracy that is very well rooted, because that is there are many societies who do not accept the concept of complete democracy, and that is absolutely fine. There is no hard and fast rule that democracy is or the best form of government. There is still a lot of political science debates going on the subject matter, because if you see examples of Syria or Iraq, no democracy is actually thriving in those areas, so much so that it has given birth to terrorist organizations like ISIS.
Exactly. And one biggest strategy of US that we all know about how US and China are fighting, and that's the global order for a long time. But can we also talk about the United States of America using countries like India and Pakistan to hedge each other, not let them focus on their own economy, participate in proxy wars, sometimes funding Pakistan, sometimes backing India, all of this to counter China? That has been the dominant discourse.
And honestly, Mr. Trump was very clear that he will improve relationships with China, will try to talk out stuff. So if you ever think, there is a very famous quote in IR diplomacy: nobody is actually your friend, they're just common interests.
Exactly.
And if anybody in the country, like many of us do think that, oh, this A country or B country is our friend, it's not actually a friend, it's just an acquaintance who has similar interests. It's like both of us like coffee, let's grow coffee.
Exactly.
One day if you start liking tea, I can do nothing about it to stop her from growing tea.
That's what I'm saying. So global interests, definitely, the global politics is surrounded by interests, and the sooner we realize it, the better. We can't keep judging every country as either our friend or enemy based on the fact that they donate to Pakistan or not. So please, let's change that popular narrative that if a country like America is giving their F-16s to Pakistan, we should be scared of it. We should not be. We have our own backing. Pakistan has their own backing. We are two independent nations, and let's stop focusing on one country to dictate our foreign policy.
Because mind you, Russia also does the same. it has also extended a lot of help to our very cute neighbors. But if we see that this discourse of following your own interest also stems from a very liberal capitalist idea, which
Exactly.
again circles back to the point that America does not only have economic, militarily a hegemonic presence in the world, but also ideologically.
Exactly. This entire idea of you're free to do whatever you want to is applicable to American citizens. That's what they boast about. But the challenge arises when somebody else in the entire world, which is not a part of America, wants to exercise free will. What does that lead you to? Tariffs.
Oppression, or full-blown wars, or threat to democracy.
Exactly. So the minute you do not follow the big guy's dictates, you're in shambles. Because guess what? That's how orders in the world are determined. There are there are countries who have gained a historical advantage and they intend very well to use that amount of progress to dominate upon the entire world and let them know who the real big daddy America is.
So it's not, this episode is not to shame on Uncle Sam. Obviously every country has the right to practice its own power, its own interest, as we see in the IR theory of realism. That is something, if you want to know more about it, comment down below. We'll make a separate episode about it as well.
Absolutely.
But this episode was basically to kind of show a mirror to people, because there are a lot of people who see everything in black or white.
Exactly.
But in this poor world of no values essentially on a global stage, everything is very grey. The country, you might think America is great, it's grey. You might think America is, oh, this super bad country. Again, it's grey. It's not like America has done all wrongs in all of its history, although majority of it is wrong to a lot of people. But they have also extended a lot of help to countries that actually needed it. The best example being the Marshall Plan in Europe.
Exactly.
We might not like Europeans as much as other people, but it's a truth that America
Exactly.
has built back Europe, be it for its own advantage or not, but Europe would be in shambles if there was no America.
Nothing moves in the global order if there is no vested interest. So there is no need to be disheartened if a country has a vested interest in helping you out. The only thing that matters is you do not get robbed in return. You do you and they do them. Whichever interest collides, you collaborate on that. We really hope that the negotiations on tariff works out in India's favor, because again, with the 6 to 7% of global growth, we need a preferential treatment in America because we have trade surplus.
And essentially, I think this is the reason why China is still number 2 in terms of its impact or its hegemonic power in the world, because America still, because of its liberal ideals, have pockets where you can negotiate, pockets where you might win also. But with China, because of their very hard and fast communist ideology, that becomes a very difficult discourse to even have discussions on the same table, because again they have their own ideological issues, which if you want to see, you can head back to our China episode. The part 1 is on Spotify, the part 2 is both on Spotify and YouTube.
So what essentially we're trying to also address here is that your interests matter to you as much as their interests matter to them. We really hope that the strategic friend or the strategic ally that US calls us is given credit to their name.
Exactly.
The last discourse that I really want to push forward is climate.
Oof.
Everybody's struggling with climate. You see soaring temperatures in India, and we've already seen that little map now on our Instagrams that tell us that this is going to be the hottest summer ever, which seems like every other summer, literally. Like every summer we hear that this is going to be the hottest summer. So we really do hope you stay safe and put all your sunscreens and everything. But there's a bigger matter at hand. Climate not only comes with the problems, the disasters, the mitigation, it also comes with funding, guys. What is America doing in climate funding again?
Pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
Exactly. The minute Trump 2.0 set in, the biggest decisions were taken. pulled out of WHO, which is World Health Organization, pulled out of the Paris Climate Treaty. They're not ready to pay reparations on the kind of destruction of environment that has happened.
And it's not even just building back better. They have decided, obviously, again, everybody has their own interests to follow, but if you completely disregard other people's interests, treat other countries as a dumping ground for your garbage, and then produce millions and millions of tons of oil, and then ask India that, okay, reduce your emissions, I am sorry, sir, your emissions are much more.
And you do not produce anything in your country for that matter. Your emissions are high even after the fact that most of your production comes from China. Okay, the best research advice that I've ever gotten is from Johnny Harris. Follow the money. If you can't follow the ideology, follow the money. Where is the money coming from? The climate space, the CSR space, the environment, social governance space is thriving. Because that's the new discussion, that's the new buzzword. We want to talk about climate change, want to talk about green financing. The entire UN is backing that. Essentially, the world or the United Nations have not been able to convince the United States to pay up because, again, I don't think they want to pay up. None of the first world countries are willing to. The quota is $100 billion that they need to contribute every single year, I think. If I'm wrong, please fact check me. But they have to contribute X amount of money to the development of the global south because climate change affects us more, because the emissions have already been set at a higher scale by the industrial leading countries. But yeah, of course, we need assistance with that, and that is not happening.
And essentially, just a very tiny discourse to add to this conversation is that the emissions that are still existing in our environment has been done by our very happiest countries of the world. They have made us sad, and Global South is the one pushing for more climate change funds, not because we are just thirsty for money, but because it is us who will get more affected, because we have the oceans, we have the earthquake prone areas. It's not the global north, it's the global south. And that is again a different discourse. If you want us to do an episode on that, we would surely bring you out with that, because global south is not, again, global south has its own issues, but its slow and delayed growth is not just a global south issue. It's a systematic oppression by our global north, and that is what we call as world system theory by Immanuel Wallerstein. And if you want to read his work, please go ahead. He is one of the best thinkers, I believe, in IR, because he shows the economic reality that a lot of poor or developing countries are still facing. And with that, I conclude my part on this episode.
The closing remarks, as usual, come to me. My closing remark is just that we hope that the deals work out. We hope that the global order remains as it is or does not become more chaotic at the moment, because we have a lot to deal with, especially the climate change. We need something to do with that. The AI is getting out of hand. The world is full of problems. But the point being that we should all actually work for a peaceful global order. The details of this is very complicated, but on that note, we're going to be signing off. Happy and healthy lives, guys. Bye-bye.
And this is not the era of war. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.